We're going. Good evening. Welcome to Wonderfully Whole Conversations. This is a platform where we highlight men and women who are living a wonderfully whole lifestyle. They are impacting their generation and generations to come by their lifestyle, by who they are and their message. Today, I am so excited to have a wonderfully whole woman. Her name is Sandra Lounsbury. Welcome, Sandra. Thank you for agreeing to come on to Wonderfully Whole Conversations. I'm so excited to have you on. You are truly a wonderfully whole woman. A wonderfully whole woman is a balanced woman. She's whole. She's strong spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And I see that in you. I have observed you over the years, and you are such an embodiment of strength, quiet strength, um, kindness, love, and graciousness. And today, I want you to share your story because I know it's going to bless a lot of people. Because we are living in a time that core family values are not popular. Our young women are bombarded by worldly role models and ungodly lifestyles. Some are so confused with different messages. They do not know who they are, they don't know right from wrong, and they end up sabotaging their lives, destroying their marriages, and unable to guide their children well. Others are crying out for godly mentors who can help them through difficult situations. And I see you, Sandra. You could share as you share your life today. You share about how you raised your children, about your marriage. You are physically fit, so you are strong physically. I want you to just tell your story because I know it's going to bless many. But before we go into the conversation, I want to share your bio. Sandra is a wife, mother, daughter, and friend, and devoted follower of Jesus Christ. She received a bachelor's degree in elementary education from the University of Richmond and went on to earn her master's in special education from Quinnipiac University. She is currently employed as a fifth grade teacher where she's passionate about unlocking each student's unique potential and making a positive impact. In addition, she serves as a volunteer at Lighthouse Ministries as the director of the children's ministry. She is dedicated to teaching children about God's love and the purpose He has for their lives. Some activities that she enjoys are reading, spending time with the family and friends, and running. She has completed several marathons. My God, several marathons, including the Boston Marathon. She resides with her husband and four children in Southbury, Connecticut. Sandra, as I was preparing for this conversation, I can't help but reflect on Proverbs 31. And I see you as a virtuous woman. You fit the description of a virtuous woman. A virtuous woman is one of strength, she is one of kindness, she's creative, and she's more precious than jewels, and she's such an asset to her husband. And I want you, as we go into this conversation today, we're going to just start from the very beginning of who you are, Sandra Lounsbury. God destined you to be in this earth at such a time like this. And I'm excited to hear about your childhood. So even as we begin, just tell me a little bit about your childhood, how you grew up, your family, anything you want to talk about your childhood.
Okay. Judy, first, I just want to thank you so much for having me on and just for such kind words and just the introduction. It's a little humbling, but I just thank you very much. It's a privilege and an honor to be on Wonderfully Whole and to be part of this conversation. And I also just want to quickly thank also my pastors for all of their support and encouragement, because I wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for my pastors, who also happen to be my in-laws, which is like a double blessing. And
Beautiful.
also to my husband Mark, who and my children, who are just always there to support me. I definitely wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all those people around me. So I'm really blessed to be here. So my childhood, I mean, if I was thinking back, I appreciated all of your questions because they really got me thinking about what God has done in my life and also the journey that I've been on for, I mean, we're all on a journey, right? From
Yes, we
the very
are.
beginning, and there's ups and there's downs in that journey. So my childhood was, I think a fairly happy childhood for the most part. My parents did the best that they could. My mother was a first generation American. She came here from Germany when she was 20.
Oh,
My dad was, second generation, so fairly new in this country.
yes.
And, they raised me the best that they knew how. They loved me, and I was an only child. I am an only child. So,
Yeah.
we had a small little family and sort of humble little beginnings, but we loved each other. My parents loved each other. And then, unfortunately, my father passed away when I was 8. And I think that was a big, that was a big point in not only my life, but my mother's life. We had this like 3 tie cord, and then one part of that gets broken off. And, um, I think that changed a lot. It changed a lot for me. It changed a lot for her. It changed a lot in our relationship. I was very close with my dad. So, that was from then on forward. I would say my childhood was not the average, obviously, like sort of happy childhood. I think I became somewhat, insecure and, just more quiet. I think, built up a lot of walls because I didn't want to be hurt like that ever again. And so, you build walls to try to protect
Yes.
yourself, but then you become a captive in those walls. And
Yes.
it took it took a long time for those walls to come down. So, I grew up with my mom through the years. She did an amazing job taking care of me, making sure I got to college, which, neither of my parents had gone to college. So that was like I was the first one doing that. She wanted the best for me in every way. And so, we weren't extremely close, but she loved me and she provided for me and she basically was the one who was really investing in me at that time. So,
It's beautiful because Sandra, I could really identify with you a little because my dad died when I was 6. So I grew up with a single mom.
mhm,
And the same thing that you were talking about, the insecurities that we feel
mhm,
because of not having that father figure in our lives.
yeah,
But we see how our mothers raised us up single handed to be the people we are today. And as you said, that you were the first person to go to college, and that is a big deal to see how you were raised, and you were raised stable, strong, the family values, that she invested in you to and push you to go to college. So that is an amazing childhood, because we hear of some stories when the father is not there, you know, the girls do not turn out as they should.
Hmm.
But your mom did a great job with you. Now, as I want to go into to talk a little bit about your marriage. Okay, you met your husband Mark,
Yeah.
and you got married. What age did you get married? What was the age that you?
So I got married at 23. And actually, my husband, Mark, was technically 22 because he's a few months
Wow,
older than me. We got married in the in between month where it wasn't his birthday yet. But however, Mark and I met in high school, and we dated in high school for a couple of years. And then God really brought us back together. So it wasn't, I think sometimes if we hadn't known each other previously, even though we were kind of very different people back then, I don't, just meeting someone at 23 and getting married, it
that is young.
necessarily
Well,
happen, right? But we already had sort of a history, and also we knew that God had brought us back together. So that kind of led into the knowing that, okay, like we can get married.
you were meant for each other. So
Yes.
you were kind of high school sweethearts,
Yes.
and it went to the next step of marriage. Now, looking at Mark, what were some of the qualities that you saw in Mark that even as a teenager that kind of drew you to Mark? What were some of the qualities that you saw in Mark?
Well, going back to my various insecurities, and even now, I mean, I'm more of an introverted person, and that, I understand that about myself. I'm not sure I understood that, in high school, but
Hmm.
and Mark was just this fun-loving, outgoing, like, just someone that you would want to be around. That was just so much fun and would kind of like do anything,
Yes.
and bring me out of my little shell. So that was huge because I just felt safe and comfortable around him. And
Beautiful.
he
Yes.
still has that quality now of making people feel comfortable and of bringing joy to people. So that was totally what, drew me to him. And then, um, that's still who he is today. I mean, he's a different person today in his walk
Yes.
with the Lord, but those innate qualities were there when he was 16, and they're there now too. So,
So you knew Mark from the age of 15 or 16. How many years you could say that I, from the time you knew each other in high school to now? So how many years you could say it's like you married for how many years? But
so we
then
were married for 23 years, and we met in 1991. I hope I'm correct
mhm.
about that. So it would be 30. I guess it would be 30 years
Wow.
knowing each other. Yeah. So.
So it's like you knew him all your life, and he drew you out with his fun and warmth,
Yeah.
and you felt comfortable around him. Now, how long was your courtship? Did you have a long courtship when
Um,
you realized that this guy, this man is for me. I believe God sent him for me. How long was your courtship? Was it a short or long courtship?
well, it was short when we kind of got back together. I mean, to make a very long story short, and I know we had discussed this because I think this would be a whole nother part
Yeah.
of your program, but the way that we were brought back together is when I was in college. My mother was in a plane crash, and so my mother also passed away, which, kind of rocked my world. And so through that, tragic experience, God used that to bring Mark and I back together. And so that something good came out of something so horrible.
Yes.
So, when we sort of reconnected, it wasn't real. It was more about him sharing, God with me at such a dark time in my life. So it wasn't anything about, oh, let's get back together. It was more like, will you come to church with me and let me tell you about this Jesus that I know, and let's read the
Yes.
Bible. So we were just friends, and he was, speaking into my life and bringing comfort and peace and, God's word in such a terrible time in my life. And that's where I, accepted the Lord and gave my heart to the Lord. And then after that, and after sort of building my relationship with God first, then sort of everything else came together with Mark and I, realizing that
You were meant to be.
were meant to be, right? So I would say actually from the time we got engaged till the time we got married was less than a year, but there was still a process, before that
Yes.
too. So I guess it was a short courtship, but it was, it was a longer process of, healing, which took much longer than that, but, there was
Yes.
time of that too. So
But I like what you mentioned. I see there was a friendship, even though you knew each other, you were attracted in your teenage years. Now, when you came back together, God allowed a friendship
mhm.
built between you and Mark. Because I believe even before we get married, when someone is your friend, it makes a big difference before you go into really getting really close and preparing for marriage. So there was a solid friendship
Yes.
built before marriage came. Now, in your opinion, because you got married young, you got married at 23 years old. Okay, I consider that young. Some people got married even younger. What are some of the benefits of marrying your sweetheart young, and some of the challenges of marrying your sweetheart at that young age?
Yeah, I think there's, benefits and challenges to getting married at any age, but I think
That's good. That's good. That's good,
we,
Sandra.
we marrying young, the benefits were just, being able to spend that time together and being, I know we made sure that we had quite a few years together before we decided to have any children, just to have that time. And like I said, I was still had a long healing process to go, even when we did get married, you know. So benefits were just to have that partner there and that support there, and
Yes.
to just know that, you have that no matter what. I always wanted, um not to get married young, but I always, wanted a family because I came from such a small family. I
Yes. Hmm.
get married and I wanted to have a pretty big family. So that was a benefit, as far as like being able to have children at sort of a younger age. And if you're going to have multiple children, right, I felt like it would be nice to have them at a younger age. I know
Yes. Yes.
hopefully that's not for everyone and everyone has a
Hmm.
different plan, but I feel like that was God's plan for us. Um, and some challenges are definitely, just trying to come together and, two totally different people with different
Hmm.
lifestyles coming together and becoming one, right? And all
Yes.
the, just all the challenges that come along with that, as far as just your different ways of
seeing things.
right. Like, I mean, Mark and I are, I think we're similar in some ways, but we're very different. I mean, I'm like a morning person and he is a night person, those types of things where, and I think in my life, I was a very from the age of 8, when that happened with my dad, I became a very independent young girl and an independent teenager. And so I was a fiercely independent person. I mean, I still am. And that's something that is something that I would like God to continue to work on me. Like, I think it can be a positive, but that can also be a
Yes.
negative. And so to take someone who's so independent like that and very
And coming together.
yeah,
Yes.
that can be a challenge. And I had to learn how to lay down my own, and I still am doing that now, learning how to lay down, things that maybe I thought or that I want to do. And, there has to be compromise and there has to be, a give and take. So, yeah.
I love that. Could you elaborate a little bit about the compromise and coming together? Because here, two people in their early 20s coming together, you're growing together. Um, Communication is a big thing in marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you bring in your independence in this marriage because that's how you grew up, and now you have this warm, fun-loving guy, just loving you, and you still have some insecurities. You have your independence. So how did you cope? How did you manage with all of that?
Well, I think what you just said was huge, like this guy loving you, right? And so
Yeah.
love is the key, right? I mean, like,
Mhm.
as the Bible says, like, love covers a multitude of sins, right? And so somehow, to be able to allow that love to be greater than anything else, even when there's some little annoyance, or maybe it's a big
Yes.
annoyance, or maybe there's some differing opinion on a financial situation, or, I mean, we've had many times with our children, some differing opinions or different thoughts on what might need to happen. But as we come together in love and respect, and, sometimes
I,
we,
I like that word that you just said. You came together in love and respect for each other.
yeah. Yeah, and it's not always easy, and
Yes.
respect is an area. There's a whole book called Love and Respect. I'm sure you've heard of it. That I read years ago, right? That women need to feel loved, and that men need to feel respected. It's not
Yes.
necessarily that men need to feel loved; they need to feel respected and
Respected.
feel loved. And so I always try to remember that, and I do still need some help in that area, but as long knowing it is the first step of remembering to, like, have that respect, and in that respect, that's how I'm showing the love also. So
And I think we all need to do that because I am much older than you are. Uh, Married a longer time, and we have to maintain that respect for our husbands. And I remember my mother-in-law always said that, and they were married for over 60 something years. And she was said, when you lose the respect in a marriage, everything goes downhill. And it's so important that you brought that out, Sandra, about the love and the respect and coming together, growing together, experiencing things together, the difficult things, the finances, raising your children. This is so important because I believe people the marriage marriage values, their core values that we want to maintain in this time where we see so much more moral decay. It's
mhm.
important that we maintain these things so that we pass on to the other generation. Now, you have a career. You have you yeah you have your master's in education. You know, when you were deciding to marry, because was that ever a conflict about you following your career totally versus having been married and having a family? Was that ever a conflict in your mind? But or you just said, I am ready to get married. This loving man, I'm going for it.
Yeah, it was actually not really a conflict in my mind, because like I had mentioned before, I always wanted a family, a big family, and I'm very grateful that I was able to take some time off. I I give so many kudos to teachers
Yeah,
who have not, like, did not take that time off and raise their children and were still teaching, because I don't know that I could have done that. I think that's so admirable to teach full time and to also be raising young children, and I think it's amazing. But I was grateful to be able to take some time off to
to
raise
raise
our children,
to
um,
raise your children.
yeah, and to still stay, working some little tutoring, or doing some little ways to stay in the teaching field, but not to be teaching full time, for those years where I was able to stay home. So,
And be a good mom.
yeah, it was never really a question of now or later. It was like we were excited to start a family pretty soon after we got married. So,
Yes. But this leads me to the next question. Balancing the responsibilities of a young wife and a mother, and even, just doing some teaching on the side. What did you do to maintain your individuality, to become the strong person, the strong woman that you are today? What are some of the things that you do? Because some people just lose themselves, and then after the children are grown and they're in college, they don't know who they are. But knowing you and observing you over the years, I see you maintain your individuality while being a good wife to to Pastor Mark, being a good mother, and then still keeping your fingers on your education, on your career. What are the some things that you did?
well, I do think it's important to have a balance, right? And to take time for I had to take time for myself, which
Yes,
I didn't always do well when you have like four children under the age of 7. It's pretty difficult to take too much time for yourself. I mean, I guess there's
yeah,
time
yeah, huh?
in the evening. We always had our kids go to bed fairly early when they were little. So we did have time in the evening where we had like sort of a pretty strict routine of when they would go to bed. And I think it was, at that time, it was good for them. It was good for us to have some time together. And I think making time for myself with just, I mean, running was a huge part of that, and also connecting with other moms, even with my children. But you go to the park with another mom and the kids are playing, and then you can connect with someone your own age that
Yes,
you talk to, right? So, um it's challenging when you're home with young kids, most of the day, and you're not really and your husband's working and you're not talking to any adults. I mean, now is a little
yeah.
different. You can FaceTime. I mean, there was no FaceTime back then for me.
Back then,
Just making that time to get together with other moms and just share life with them, or challenges, or just, it doesn't even really have to be anything, but just being with other adults that you can learn from and glean from.
So you develop uh, relationships with other women to help you maintain your individuality while raising your kids.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Now,
And I was just gonna go back to the running for me has was also just a way to just get out for 30 minutes and spend a little time, in nature, and also just time to just let everything else go to the side, and just be able to focus on something besides just my children, right? So
yeah. So you had a little me time when
yeah.
you ran, and I think this is good because it's the running help you physically, and also to just get some quiet time. I'm sure when you were running, you know, you were able to think things through, look at different situations, and just the quiet time away from the children, you're able to, just look at life differently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I will say, when the kids got a little bit older and there was more of a routine, getting up early and just taking some quiet time was also huge for me, just to read a devotion. And I mean, even sometimes the kids were up and they might be watching TV, but to like be in my own space and
Yes.
read a devotion, have some prayer time, even if it was just 20 minutes or 30 minutes, to just start the day that way on a positive note,
Hmm.
was is what I love to do. So
So just the quiet time. These are some of the disciplines. I wanted to ask you about some of your disciplines. Okay, we talk about running. Now we're talking about quiet time. You have a relationship with the Lord, and walking with the Lord help you to become the person you are today. So you mentioned one of the disciplines of spending time with Him, having a devotional time with Him every day. Are there any other disciplines in your life, walking with the Lord, that you would like to share with us today that help you become who you are today?
I think certain disciplines come at different seasons in your life. So I think that quiet time was something that's kind of carried me through every season. When I
Yes.
first gave my heart to the Lord and we didn't have any children, we were married. Um, I spent a lot of time reading the Bible, and I think I did one of those, read the Bible in a year, and then I think I read it multiple times.
Yes.
And I have all these notebooks of all these notes I would take, and what God was speaking to me. And that was a season, right, where I was just like a baby Christian, just just like soaking everything in.
Yeah.
And then we had like all these kids one after another, and I didn't have as much time to be dedicating to that. So then I would, like I said, like read a devotion, right, which is a little bit shorter. It takes a little shorter amount of time
Yes.
to read a verse or something like that. So I didn't spend as much time reading the Bible as I did in those first 5-6 years. But that's something that kind of comes and goes in my life. I feel like there's certain seasons where I read a verse or two at least every day, but I don't always read like, okay, I'm going to read a chapter a day, because I just don't have the same amount of time. I wish I did. But I think, prayer and some little devotional time, I
Hmm.
find the time for that. I always wish I had more time. I wish I had an hour in the morning. I don't have an hour. I have about 30 to 40 minutes. So that's,
That's great. But you see how God set you up. He set you up in your foundation years to get all that word in.
mm,
And even though now you're maintaining that quiet time, because we know that with 4 kids, you can't spend 2 hours in your room, and you have 4 kids to raise. So, but you still maintain your devotional time. Now, even in reading all the Bible, I want to ask you this question: which woman in the Bible that you admired or you were drawn to?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think probably either Ruth, or as far as like books of the Bible, definitely Ruth, um, and also Esther. I think those are probably two of my favorite women in the Bible. I know they're both like Old Testament, but and again, books that I would love to revisit. That I haven't read probably in a while, but I consider for such a time as this, right? Those
Yes, yes.
whole verse, and I feel like that's speaking to all of us today, right? We are born at this time for a purpose and a reason, right? And whether we're a mother of 4 or a mother of 1, or we don't have any children at all, right? There's still, God has a purpose and a plan for being here at this time in our world, which is a little bit, I mean, everybody knows our world is a little very different today than it was even 2 years ago. So,
We want to impact our generation because God placed us in this particular time for a reason. I
yeah.
like these characters that you chose. Esther, we are called for such a time like this. Sandra was placed on this earth for such a time like this. It's beautiful. And now you raise 3 daughters. Okay, one is in college, one is about to go to college in September, one is in high school, and of course you have a son. Now, what advice would you give to each one of them about a career, about marrying early? Also, because you have 3 young women in your house, what also about relationships with the opposite sex? How you are the mother figure. How, because they come into you with all kinds of asking you questions, because we see the world is totally different. Now you are, as a godly woman, a virtuous woman, having to do with all these things, questions that they might be throwing at you. What advice would you give to them in these 3 categories about choosing a career? I know Siobhan is in her 3rd year. Sydney is about to go to college. Could you share with us that? Because you had to have an impact on these young women because they're making great decisions, going to college on the right track, and beautiful woman. Would you mind sharing about that?
Yeah. Um, so as far as a career, I mean, I do feel like we've always said to our children, that they have specific gifts that God has given them, and also that they should just follow where they feel God is leading them, right? It's not about money or a specific career that you should go into, but like what is interesting to you? Where do you feel that God has given you those gifts? Um,
Mhm.
so I think that's kind of, I mean, I think that's what they've seen in our lives, as far as what Mark does and what I do. Mark is in a working at Jericho, working at Lighthouse Ministries, in a career of serving people and helping people. And I know that they see that in his life. And I know that that's something that they want to do. Like that might not be their career, but I know that they see the impact that that's making and that they want to help people as well, maybe on a small scale, maybe on a larger
Mhm.
scale. And even in my teaching, it's helping children, right? Grow and learn. And so I think they've kind of seen that in our lives, that we're not necessarily looking for the biggest paycheck, but more what
To
fulfills us,
serve.
a job that we can go to that we're like excited and happy to go to most almost all days, maybe not every single day, but a job that we
You're passionate
love.
about.
Yeah, I mean, I love my job, and it's a blessing. So I just pray for them that they find something that they love, right? Because we can't. I think it'd be very difficult to go to have a
Something that you don't.
yeah, something that you dread going to every day, right? So, um, and then what was the second one? I'm so sorry.
Marrying early.
Marrying
Well,
early, and
like
again,
Siobhan is in her third year.
yes,
She's about, like you said, she's 20.
she's gonna be
Um, if she came to you and say, "Mom, I believe I want to, get married as soon as I leave college," how would you feel about that?
that would be interesting. um, but again, I think we try to lead them and guide them as best that we can, and
Hmm.
I think we're able to have some good conversations with our girls and with Eli as well. But in the end, they at well, maybe not 18, but at 20, 21, they are now the adult,
Adults.
right? So we always say that, we are going to love you no matter what. We're still going to give you our opinion on something, and hopefully you'll listen and hopefully you'll learn, because we've been through probably many of the challenges or decisions that you're making, but we can't force them to do something, or
Hmm.
not to do something. So, and I mean, my prayer for all of my children is that they will find, well, I learned from the best from Apostle Tom, right? That to start praying early for the spouses
Yes,
and the
yes,
families.
perfect.
My prayer is that they will find, a man, and Eli will find a woman that loves God and wants to serve Him, and whenever that might be, if it's early in life or if it's later in life, So
And you and Mark are role models. You got married young, and look at you. You know, so they're looking at your life. So even if they get married young, you have imparted certain values in them that, and in addition to the prayer, they would have a successful life. Now, any of your kids, because I don't like to say kids, but children that you any of them was kind of, I don't want to say rebellious, but always press back at something that you had to deal with them in a different way, and then you and Mark have to pray for them. With any of your kids that you had to um, that that was always bucking the rules. How did you deal with that?
um, I think each of them had seasons of challenge, I guess I would say, or trials. I'm not sure, I don't know how this happened, but I don't think we got a super rebellious child. Like little, like certain situations maybe, but
Yes.
situations that we could, talk with them, pray with them, or, certainly doing a lot of praying on my own. But yeah, they, I don't even know how this, by the grace of God, they have come through and, you know, been, pretty amazing kids. Not
Thank
perfect,
God for
but
that, because it's prayer, as you say, you praying for your children. That's one of the biggest things that I believe, that once we pray, they go through some rough waters at different times, but we see God, bring them back to the the straight and narrow, and we have to give God thanks for that.
Yes, yeah, I do think that. And there's certainly, they're not perfect by any stretch, but yeah, there's been just ups and downs, probably more. I mean, thank God, more ups than downs, just challenges along the way. And I do feel that it's funny. I've said this to a couple of friends whose kids are getting older, like 16, 18, that I have a feeling there's going to be quite a few other challenges that come along with the older years. There's a little saying like bigger kids, bigger
Big
problems. And not that
problems.
I want to say they're bigger problems, but I feel like when they're younger, they're in under your roof, and there's there's just a lot of interaction there. And then as they begin to move out of the home, there's not
Yes.
much control that you have, but yet there's a big wide world out there with a lot of different choices for them to make. And so I'm sure that there's going to be other times for prayer and
But the good thing is that we come back to the script here that says, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they get old, they should not depart from it. So I know you trusted in the training that in the home plus the prayer. A person comes to mind was Billy Graham's son.
hmm,
Okay, he was rebellious, but then the training, the prayers. Now look at him today. You know, so God is in control, and once we do our job, I believe God is going to take care of the rest. We just got the training and praying for our children.
yes.
Now, Sandra, you are in great physical shape. I love that, because wonderfully whole is all about being strong spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. This is a part that some people drop as Christians. They don't take care of the temple. Our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Now, you have a passion for running, and you have, this is amazing. You have completed marathons. My gosh, congrats to you. I salute you. A marathon, you have completed that. That takes a lot of discipline as a mother, as a wife, as a teacher. You completed these marathons, and you one of them is the Boston Marathon. Talk a little bit about your marathons. How long was the Boston Marathon that you completed?
Well, I mean, I love
How
what
many miles was that?
so all the marathons are 26.2 miles. Um,
Okay.
and I love what you said, because I think discipline is a huge huge part of training for a race like that, or any kind of race. Not just physical discipline, but also like mental discipline as well.
Yes.
um, and so, I mean, going back to my much younger years, I think running was an escape for me in many ways, whether good or bad. That it was a way for me to sort of focus on something different and kind of escape the realities of what was going on in my life. And then as I got older, it became, like I said, actually a really nice little way to have some me time. So I mean, the marathons, I haven't run one in probably, I think the Boston Marathon was in 2016, so 5 years. Um,
Hmm.
and I probably will not run another one. The one thing about those type of races, and I love the discipline, and the training takes a lot of time. It takes discipline, but it also takes a lot of time. And that's the one very much challenging part, is that now these days, the place that I'm in, that was also like a season. I think the marathon,
Hmm.
I did them all in maybe 5-year span. And the season that I'm in now, I feel like that time that I would spend, I would much rather spend in some other areas. So not that I still run quite often, but that type of intense training, I feel like that was a past season.
That was a season.
I'm not sure I will go back to that. I would rather spend time with people, like go for a walk with a friend and have a nice conversation. I don't know. It's just a different time. And, I think now that there's just different things going on in my life where I wouldn't necessarily have that time or even want to necessarily spend that much time in that type of training. But I still do enjoy just running and not having that pressure. I guess it's also, you put that pressure on yourself. But
Now, now, how do you prep for a marathon? And I know you have to schedule a certain amount of miles that you run a day, but there are some life lessons in running a marathon. Is any would you like to share that? Because when I look at we just had the Tokyo Olympics,
mhm.
and I was watching the women doing the triathlon, and I got so many lessons from that. One woman, she was transitioning from the riding,
Yes.
taking out her helmet and they're supposed to put it in like a box or container to prepare to run. I learned so much from that, Sandra.
Mm.
She did not put it. One of them did not put it in the spot that she was supposed to put it. She was penalized 15 seconds. That that taught me lessons in my life.
Mm.
I was just observing the discipline. Now, how did you prep for the marathon, and what life lessons that you could share with us that would help us to run this race of life? Because in Hebrews 11 talks about laying aside weights
Mm.
and every sin that easily beset us and run our race with perseverance and patience. Any life lessons that you would want to share with us?
Well, yeah, I love the verse, especially. I love the way Paul refers to running so often. I don't know. That really, I think, is so great in Hebrews. But I think the perseverance part of it, whether you're running just on a day to day basis or you're running in a race, there's a lot of times where you don't really feel it. You don't, something's hurting or your mind you're just not really into it. But, you know, focusing, it's like where we focus our thoughts, that's where we'll be, right? That's where we will end up. So if you have if I'm thinking the whole time I'm running, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this to be over, like my hip is hurting and my knee is hurting, or if I'm thinking, you know what, I am out in on this beautiful trail in God's amazing creation. I'm out here, my body's doing this, I can do this, I there's only, however many miles to go. I think it's all like that, even that self-talk, that positive self-talk, whether it's a Bible
I love that.
or, yeah, I think, running is a very mental sport, as is, I think, swimming, any of these types of individual sports. I would say triathlon is the
Yes.
same thing, right? That you're spending a lot of time with yourself and your own thoughts, right? So what are we going to focus on? Are we focusing on the positive or are we focusing on the negative, so that's a huge one for me, is to keep all those thoughts positive.
I love that. Positive and positive self talk. And what I just got from you, enjoy the journey.
Yes. Absolutely. Enjoy the journey.
This is it's amazing. Now, we almost, they're always going by so quickly.
Oh wow.
So, oh my gosh, I love it because I wanted you to be on to just share these thoughts that people could identify, they could glean, they could be blessed, and the advice, just even in this running, the focus, the mental strength, the self-talk, the enjoying the journey, all part in running our race with perseverance. Now,
Yeah.
as we close, because this is my last question, and I want you, after this question, I want you to pray. But the question is, what advice would you give to young women who are Generation Z and the millennials? We know the millennials are 24, I believe, 24 to 40. The Generation Z is they're born in 1997 to 2015. There's so much chaos in our world these days. I started off my conversation with saying that the values, virtue, moral excellence is not popular.
Hmm.
And we're seeing the devastation in young women's lives. What advice, I know we talked a lot about, walking with the Lord, how you lived your life, but anything else that you would want to share with the millennials and Generation Z?
I think the main thing is, our world is there's so many uncertainties, right? Right now, there's so many things changing. It's almost like we're all on this like unstable ground.
Hmm.
And I think the only stability that we can find um, is in Christ, right? And knowing God, knowing that we have a purpose, knowing that we are loved and that we are here for a reason. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I try to focus on when, I don't love change. There's a lot of change going on in my personal life right now. And then there's so much change going on in the world. I think people we all just have so many things sort of, like you said, I don't know, there's just so much out there that can be pushing on us, right? But if we know
Yes,
that there is stability in God and in his love and in his word, um, that can bring us through anything. So that is the huge, I don't know, takeaway for me, is that in an unstable world, right, that God is still God and he is, trustworthy and faithful, and that we can rely on him in any uncertain times.
beautiful. I love that because he's our rock.
Yes.
He is our strength at this time. And we're seeing a lot of mental health issues because of this pandemic. But he helps us to be mentally strong, emotionally strong. You have seen it in your life. I've seen it in my life. And I believe that's the best advice that we could give to our young women, because as I don't even say that you're an older woman, but the Bible talks that we have to, you know, give advice and counsel to the young women because they are facing a lot of tough decisions and a lot of changes. So we have to pass on something that will give them strength, spiritual strength, mental toughness, emotional stability,
Yes.
to live their lives because they are going to be bringing in the next generation. So, Sandra, I am so happy. We have one more minute, but two more. minutes before we close. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing from your heart, giving up your life for people to glean good stuff, to glean virtue, because I see you as a virtuous woman. A virtuous woman is one of strength. A virtuous woman is one of moral excellence. A virtuous woman, kind words, full of love. Okay? And now I would like you to pray for our young women.
Okay. And Judy, I want to say one other thing. One other thing is for women to surround themselves with other women that are like-minded, right? I think that's huge for us. I mean, God certainly first, but then also other Christian women that can, in your church or, in your town, other moms that can support you, encourage you. That's such a big thing to have, like a village of people.
Yes.
So, okay.
I like that, Sandra. So, and even godly godly women mentors.
Yes. Yeah.
Need that.
Squeeze that in there. So,
yes.
All right. Father God, we just thank you for this time, God. We thank you for your word and your presence, Lord. And I just want to pray for all of the young women out there, Father, the teenagers, those in their 20s and 30s, whether they're single or engaged or married, Father, whether they have children or no children, God. I just ask that they would know that there is love and stability in you, Father, that there is just a purpose that you have for their lives, for this time, for such a time as this, God. They're not here by accident, Father, but you have a plan for their lives.
Yes, Lord.
You see them day in and day out, Father, whether there's a mom that's driving their kids, whether it's a woman at her job, Father, you see their hearts, you see everything that they're doing, Father. And I just pray that they would know that they are loved, that there is hope, Father, no matter what challenges they may be facing tonight, or maybe there are no challenges, God, maybe everything's going smoothly right now, Father, that they would know that you are there for them, no matter what, that you are there to support them, and that there are also other Christians, other believers around that want to come and be part of their village, Lord, and support them, Father. And I just thank you for every woman that is watching, and I pray that you would just surround them with your peace and your love in this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank
and
you.
Also, anybody watching this conversation and you would like to reach out to Sandra, you could reach out to her via the Facebook Messenger. You might have a question to ask her. You might have you might need some advice. She's the perfect person to impart into your life because she's bringing purity and strength and godly wisdom. And Sandra, thank you so much again for agreeing to be on this wonderfully whole conversation. It has been a blessing.
Thank you, Judy, for having me. It's been wonderful, and I just enjoy conversing with you and just sharing with you. It was wonderful.
I enjoyed myself too. So as we close off, have a wonderfully whole evening to everyone. And next month we would have another guest. Tune in. So be well and be wonderfully whole. God bless.